The clock on the bedside table glowed 2:47 a.m. The rain outside whispered against the window pane, steady, relentless. Emily stirred beneath the covers, half dreaming, half aware. Then she heard it. A voice, low, measured, and coming from the hallway. Daniel's voice. She blinked into the darkness, her heart giving a strange, nervous tremor. He was speaking softly, almost affectionately to someone. The tone wasn't businesslike, not the clipped precision he used in meetings. It was warmer, closer. "Yeah, I'll take care of it," he murmured. "Don't worry, she won't suspect a thing." A pause. The faint sound of him breathing. Then a whisper. "You know I love you." Emily froze. Her chest tightened as though the air itself had turned heavy. The call ended with a click. Silence. She heard his footsteps. Slow, careful, as if he was trying not to wake her. She shut her eyes quickly, heart thudding against her ribs. The mattress dipped as he climbed back in. The scent of rain and aftershave followed him. "You're awake?" he asked softly. "No," she lied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just cold." Daniel reached over, brushed her shoulder with the back of his hand. "Bad dreams again?" "Maybe." He pulled her closer, his arm wrapping around her with practiced tenderness. But his skin felt colder than usual, his breathing slower. Emily stared into the dark. Just work, she told herself. He always took late calls. His firm handled international clients. Still, the tone in his voice went that warmth. It didn't belong to a conference call. Minutes crawled by. Daniel's breathing deepened into sleep, but Emily couldn't close her eyes. She kept replaying the words, every syllable soaked in unease. Don't worry, she won't suspect a thing. Her mind twisted it, replayed it, dissected it. Who was he talking to? What wouldn't she suspect? Lightning flashed, illuminating his face, calm, untroubled, as though nothing had happened. Emily watched him for a long time, wondering if she had truly ever known the man lying beside her. Outside, thunder rolled, distant but growing nearer. Inside, something else began to thunder too, quiet, unseen, the first crack in the foundation of a perfect marriage. And though she didn't know it yet, that single whisper in the dark was the beginning of everything that would follow. The next morning, Daniel was already in the kitchen, humming softly as he poured her coffee, the same way he did every day. The smell of roasted beans mixed with the faint trace of his cologne, sharp and controlled. "Morning, Em," he said with a smile so gentle it almost felt rehearsed. "You were tossing in your sleep." Emily forced a smile. "Just tired." He leaned in, kissed her forehead, perfectly timed, perfectly warm. Too perfect. All through breakfast, his charm was effortless. He talked about meetings, deadlines, an upcoming client dinner. Everything fit together like pieces of a story he'd told before. But now Emily listened differently. She noticed the careful pauses, the small details that didn't quite align, like he was performing the role of the perfect husband instead of living it. When he left for work, she hugged him goodbye and caught it, the faint scent of floral perfume clinging to his collar. Not hers, not any she owned. "New detergent?" she asked lightly. Daniel chuckled, slipping on his jacket. "Probably from the office. The receptionist wears enough perfume to fumigate the building." His laugh was easy, unbothered, but his eyes flicked away for a fraction of a second, and Emily saw it. That tiny break in the mask. The day crawled by. She washed dishes that weren't dirty, folded the same towel 3 times, replaying his voice from the night before. Don't worry, she won't suspect a thing. When he returned that evening, he brought flowers, her favorite lilies. "For you," he said. Just because. The gesture should have warmed her heart. Instead, it chilled her. She smiled, thanked him, pretended everything was fine. But as she arranged the flowers in the vase, she noticed something strange. A single red petal among the white ones, bleeding color into the water. Daniel kissed her neck. "See? Still your perfect man." Emily's reflection in the glass trembled as she whispered, "Perfect, yes." But perfection, she realized, was the easiest lie to believe. The lilies were still on the counter the next night, their white petals now tinged with brown. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch, phone resting loosely in his hand. Emily watched him from the hallway, the steady rise and fall of his chest, the calm face that once meant safety. She hesitated. Then she took the phone. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it, the glow of the screen slicing through the dark. Messages, dozens of them, all from a contact saved simply as E. Can't wait to see you again. Midnight worked last time. Same place? Delete this. The last one was sent less than an hour ago. Emily's breath caught. The room felt smaller, tighter. Her mind raced through explanations. Business, client, mistake. But the pit in her stomach already knew better. Behind her, a voice broke the silence. "What are you doing?" She turned sharply. Daniel stood in the doorway, half in shadow. His tone was calm, but his eyes, steady, unreadable, made her pulse quicken. You went through my phone?" He said softly, almost wounded. "After everything we talked about, Em? After I helped you through your paranoia?" "I'm not paranoid, Daniel. I saw the messages." He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, perfectly composed. "You're doing it again," he said gently. "You're reading into things that aren't there. You haven't been sleeping. You've been anxious, and now you're creating stories." His words wrapped around her like smoke. Soft, choking, convincing. "E is Eric," he continued. "From work. Short for E. Collins. You met him at the firm dinner last year, remember?" Her throat tightened. She did remember someone named Eric. But the tone of those messages. Daniel stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You need to trust me, or we'll both drown in your imagination." She nodded slowly. But her heart refused. That night, as Daniel slept soundly beside her, Emily stared at the dark screen of his phone, the name E glowing faintly in her mind like a warning she couldn't unsee. The next morning, sunlight spilled weakly through the curtains, painting soft lines across the bedroom floor. Emily sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the faint reflection of herself in the dresser mirror. Pale skin, tired eyes, lips pressed tight. The reflection didn't look like her anymore. It looked like someone watching herself fall apart. Daniel had already left for an early meeting. His absence used to bring relief. Now it felt like a void she couldn't fill. She reached for her phone, scrolling absently until she stopped at an old message thread. Dr. Keller, therapist. Her thumb hovered, then pressed call. "Emily?" The voice on the other end was warm, steady. "It's been a while. I just needed to talk," Emily said. "I think it's happening again." There was silence, then the careful tone Dr. Keller always used when Emily's voice trembled. "Tell me what makes you think that." "It's Daniel," she whispered. "I don't know if it's me or him. I keep feeling like I'm losing track of what's real." Through narration, the memory slipped in. 2 years ago, the hospital lights, the trembling hands that couldn't hold a glass of water. Daniel had been her anchor then, visiting daily, bringing flowers, whispering that he'd never leave. She'd believed him, but lately that warmth had turned clinical. Dr. Keller's voice pulled her back. "Emily, I've always told you, your intuition is strong, not broken. If something feels wrong, don't silence it." Emily nodded, though her throat burned. "He says I'm imagining things." That's what manipulation often sounds like. The session ended, leaving a quiet echo in her mind. She sat there long after the call, staring at her reflection again. The woman in the mirror didn't look fragile this time. She looked aware. That evening, Daniel came home later than ever. His tie was loose, his voice sharp. "Work's been hell," he muttered, avoiding her eyes. Emily only nodded, studying him. There was a faint trace of perfume again, sweeter this time. Not from her world. He caught her gaze. "You're not starting with the questions again, are you?" "No," she said softly. "Not tonight." He smiled, relieved, and turned away. But in the reflection of the window, Emily's eyes stayed on him. Cold, awake, waiting. The rain had returned, soft at first, then steady, drumming against the windows like a warning. Emily sat in bed, the house dark except for the faint glow of Daniel's office light down the hall. He'd been working late again, always working. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unlocked her phone and opened the recording app. She told herself it was just for proof, just to quiet the doubt eating at her. She set the phone on the nightstand, microphone facing the door, and waited. The clock crept past midnight. Then she heard it, his voice, low, confident, dangerous. "No, she doesn't suspect a thing," Daniel said. His tone was gentle, almost affectionate. "She's been distracted lately." "Perfect timing." Emily's chest tightened. The words slid through her like ice water. She strained to hear, pressing her hand to the wall. "I've already handled the paperwork. The transfer will go through as soon as it's done." A pause. Then with a faint chuckle, "She trusts me completely. That's the beauty of it." There was silence, just the rain. Then Daniel spoke again, softer now. A whisper that turned her stomach. "Don't worry. She'll never see it coming." Emily's breath hitched. Her own name followed. Emily. Spoken like an afterthought, she felt her pulse in her ears. The air in the room thickened. Her mind fought to piece it together. Insurance? Money, another woman? But every explanation felt worse than the last. The call ended. Footsteps approached. Emily snatched the phone, killing the recording, and lay still. The door creaked open. Daniel peeked in, smiling faintly. "You're still awake?" "Couldn't sleep." He crossed the room, kissed her forehead. "You worry too much?" When he left, Emily stared into the dark, clutching her phone to her chest. The faint red dot on the screen blinked like a heartbeat. Proof. Outside, thunder rolled again, closer this time, echoing the storm building inside her. For the first time, she wasn't just suspicious. She was afraid, and though she didn't know what it was, she knew Daniel's plan was already in motion, and she was the center of it. The next morning, Emily couldn't shake the echo of Daniel's words. She'll never see it coming. They looped in her mind as she moved through the house like a ghost, every sound sharper, every silence heavier. When Daniel left for work, she waited until the garage door rumbled shut. Then she went into his study. It was immaculate, everything labeled, stacked, locked away. She'd always admired that about him. Now it terrified her, because neatness, she realized, could also be a way of hiding things. She began at the desk drawers, rifling through folders of invoices, contracts, tax returns. Nothing unusual, until one envelope slipped free from a pile and landed face down on the floor. She turned it over, a photograph. Daniel stood in it, younger but unmistakable. Same smile, same calm posture. His arm was around a woman with dark hair and kind eyes. Emily had never seen her before. On the back, a faint name written in ink. Marissa Hale, 2018. Her pulse quickened. The name sounded familiar. She searched it online, fingers trembling. Within minutes, the headline appeared. Local architect found dead. Police rule death and accident. Marissa Hale, a workplace accident. A fall from her balcony. Survived by close friend and colleague Daniel R. Hensley. Emily's stomach twisted. The article mentioned depression, unstable behavior, just like the notes in her own medical file. The ones Daniel had helped her manage. She sat frozen, piecing the fragments together. The late-night calls. The insurance papers Daniel had her sign for emergencies. The pills he sometimes handed her instead of her prescription bottle. The thought hit her like a blade. "I'm next." She glanced at the photo again, Marissa's smile, open and trusting. The same expression Emily had worn once. The front door suddenly clicked. Panic surged. She shoved the photo back, closed the drawer, and rushed to the kitchen, pretending to tidy dishes. Daniel walked in, loosened his tie, kissed her cheek. "You look pale. Everything okay?" She forced a smile. "Just tired. Maybe take your meds early tonight," he said softly. "You'll sleep better." Emily nodded, but her heart screamed. Because she finally understood. Sleep was the last thing she could afford. The next days blurred together, each one stealing a piece of Emily's certainty. It started small. The missing keys, the misplaced watch. Lights left on, she swore she'd turned off. Then came the pills. The label on her prescription bottle looked slightly different. The capsules inside a shade paler than before. When she asked Daniel, he smiled patiently. "You're mixing them up again, Em. You've always been forgetful with these." "I'm not," she said quietly. "Something's off." He laughed, the sound soft but cutting. "Sweetheart, you've been under stress. You're not thinking clearly. Why don't you rest?" His voice wrapped around her like velvet and wire, comforting and cruel at the same time. At night, Emily lay awake, replaying moments that no longer made sense. The phone calls, the photo, Marissa's eyes staring from the past. She wanted to trust what she'd seen, what she'd heard, but Daniel's calm certainty made her question everything. Maybe she was slipping again. Maybe Dr. Keller was wrong. One morning, she woke to find her wedding ring missing. The jewelry box sat open on the dresser. its lid trembling slightly from the ceiling fan. Daniel found her searching the floor and crouched beside her, concern painted perfectly on his face. "It's on your finger," he said gently, taking her hand. It was. She stared at it, confused, heart pounding. She could have sworn. "See?" he whispered. "You just forget things. It's okay. I'll take care of you." The words were tender, but his eyes watched her like a scientist observing a specimen. Later that night, she tried to write everything down, proof that she wasn't losing her mind. But when she returned to the page hours later, the entries were gone. Blank. Daniel passed behind her, brushing her shoulder. "You really should sleep, Em." She nodded numbly. The walls felt closer, the air thinner. In the reflection of the window, her face looked foreign, pale, trembling, uncertain, and somewhere deep inside a thought began to whisper back against his control. "If I don't act soon, I'll disappear entirely." The night Daniel left for another client dinner, Emily waited until his car disappeared down the street. Her hands shook as she turned off every light except the one spilling from the study door. She'd been here before, searching, doubting, but this time she wasn't guessing. She knew. The study smelled faintly of leather and cologne. Everything sat perfectly arranged, like a showroom of control. She moved quietly, careful not to disturb anything. The laptop was closed, polished to a mirror sheen. Her reflection stared back at her. Pale, frightened, determined, she pressed the power button. The familiar hum filled the silence. A password screen appeared. She hesitated, then typed the date of their anniversary. It unlocked instantly. Her stomach dropped. Folders filled the desktop and finances, work, clients. But one sat apart at the bottom corner of the screen. Labeled simply Emily. Her breath hitched. Click inside were photos, hundreds. Emily asleep. Emily crying. Emily standing on the balcony in her robe, looking down as if in despair. Every image time-stamped, collected. Some were altered, her eyes red. A bottle in her hand that she never remembered holding. Then came the documents. PDFs of psychiatric reports copied from her real records but edited, adding false notes about suicidal tendencies, hallucinations, increasing instability. A fabricated message thread followed, showing texts she had never sent. "I can't do this anymore. I just want peace." Each file was a weapon, a narrative already written. Her vision blurred. She could almost hear Daniel's calm voice explaining it all to the police. She'd been struggling for years. I tried to help her. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She copied the folder onto a flash drive she found in the drawer, praying the noise of the fan masked the faint clicks. Then, through the monitor's reflection, she saw headlights flash outside. Daniel's car. Early. Heart racing, she closed everything, wiped her fingerprints from the desk, and slipped out just as the front door opened. "Em?" Daniel's voice called, casual, warm. "You still awake?" She forced calm into her reply. "Just reading." He stepped closer, smiling faintly. "You look pale. Bad dreams again?" Emily met his eyes, her voice steady for the first time in days. "No, not anymore." But as she turned away, she hid the flash drive in her pocket. The first shard of truth in a house built entirely on lies. Emily woke the next morning with a plan carved deep inside her. Quiet, invisible, dangerous. The flash drive was hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the guest room. She'd spent half the night replaying Daniel's voice in her mind. Every lie, every careful manipulation. If he wanted to make her look unstable, then that's exactly what she would give him. The performance began with small things. She forgot conversations, misplaced her purse, left the stove on. When Daniel asked if she was all right, she smiled faintly, unfocused. "I don't know," she murmured. "I think I'm getting worse." He studied her closely, satisfaction flickering behind the concern. "It's okay, Em, I'll handle everything. You just rest." That night she made sure the pills he gave her disappeared down the sink. In her notebook, the one he believed was a therapy journal, she wrote instead, "Day 1, he's watching." Smile more. Pretend to break. Days passed. Daniel relaxed. He started taking longer calls in the open, stopped checking the locks, even left his laptop unattended. The more she unraveled on the outside, the more composed she became inside. When she stumbled and cried in front of him, his arms went around her easily. I hate seeing you like this, he whispered, voice tender but cold underneath. She leaned into his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Me too, she said. But it'll be over soon. He didn't hear the double meaning. Each night she documented everything. The medicine changes, the late-night messages, his quiet rehearsals of sympathy. She knew he was preparing for something final. The timing, the method, the story of her suicide. But she was ready. As she watched him sleep, the illusion of love finally shattered. All that remained was strategy, a silent countdown between predator and prey. And for the first time, Emily realized she no longer feared Daniel. She pitied him. The house was silent, the kind of silence that hums with expectation. Emily moved through the room slowly, deliberately, every motion rehearsed. The cameras were already hidden, one behind the bookshelf, another tucked inside the clock on the mantel. A third, tiny and perfect, sat beneath the lamp beside her bed. Each red light blinked faintly, waiting. It was almost midnight when Daniel came home. His footsteps were light, practiced. He carried takeout and 2 glasses of wine. You didn't eat, he said gently, setting the food down. You need your strength. Emily nodded, her face blank. I'm just tired. He smiled, and that soft, sympathetic smile that had once meant safety. I know. That's why I think we should end this suffering. Her pulse quickened, but she kept her tone calm. End it? You've been unhappy for so long, he said, brushing a lock of hair from her face. You told me once you wished it would all stop. I can help you, Emily, peacefully. He pulled out the small bottle of pills, the ones he'd switched weeks ago. Just take them all tonight. You'll finally rest. She stared at the pills, at his hands, steady, unshaking. He'd done this before. She could see it now. Will you stay with me? She asked. Of course, he said softly. Until the end. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, pressing record under the guise of trembling fingers. Daniel, she whispered, why are you doing this? He smiled, the mask finally slipping. Because you were never supposed to wake up. The words hung in the air like poison. Before he could react, the sound of sirens cut through the night. Daniel's head jerked toward the window, confusion breaking across his face. Emily's hand clenched the phone tighter. What did you called for help? She said, voice shaking but firm. And they're hearing everything. The front door burst open. Flashlights swept across the room. Daniel stumbled back, hands raised, fury twisting his calm features into something monstrous. You think this changes anything? He hissed as officers restrained him. You'll always be broken, Emily. She met his eyes. Maybe, but at least now I'm alive. As they dragged him away, his last words echoed through the house. Venomous. Final. You were never supposed to wake up. Weeks passed before Emily could bring herself to listen to the recording again. The house was empty now, stripped of Daniel's scent, his clothes, his voice. Only silence remained, heavy and familiar. She sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, the flash drive beside her. The police had already taken their copies, but she needed to hear it. One last time. To know it had all been real. She pressed play. Static crackled, then Daniel's voice filled the room, calm, methodical, chilling. She'll take them without a fight. Her system's weak already. Emily closed her eyes. Every syllable was a wound reopening. But then another voice emerged. Deeper, colder, almost bored. Make sure the paperwork matches the others, the man said. We can't afford another delay. The payout must look natural. Emily froze. It wasn't Daniel alone. It was planned. They spoke in coded terms, names replaced by initials, timelines disguised as projects, but the meaning was clear. Multiple wives, multiple deaths, all declared accidents, all insured through the same firm. Daniel hadn't just been a liar or a killer. He'd been part of something much larger. When the recording ended, the silence roared back in. Emily sat perfectly still, her hands trembling around the flash drive. The next morning, she walked into the police station and placed it on the detective's desk. There's more, she said quietly. He wasn't working alone. The officer nodded, eyes wide. You've done the right thing. But as Emily stepped outside, the winter wind cut through her coat. The word right felt hollow. Justice would come, but it wouldn't bring her peace. In the distance, a siren wailed, fading into static. The sea was gray that morning, Calm, endless, indifferent. Emily stood barefoot on the sand, the wind threading through her hair, the taste of salt clinging to her lips. The town was small, quiet, anonymous. No one here knew her name, and that was its greatest mercy. Weeks had passed since Daniel's arrest. His face had been on the news, his crimes dissected by strangers who spoke in headlines and statistics. Insurance fraud ring, they said. Multiple victims, but none of them spoke about the way he smiled, or how he made you believe safety existed in his arms. Emily rented a cottage overlooking the water. Some nights she wrote in a journal she'd started after the trial, words that trembled between grief and clarity. He studied me, learned my weaknesses, turned my love into evidence. There was no revenge in her heart anymore, only exhaustion. Freedom had a strange taste, clean but bitter. Sometimes she still heard his voice, low and convincing, echoing in memory. You worry too much. Soon as she wondered how many women had heard that same tone before it was too late. As dusk fell, the tide crept closer, washing away her footprints. She turned toward the cottage, where the faint glow of a lamp waited. Inside, her phone buzzed once on the table. An unknown number. The screen pulsed with light, the ringtone cutting through the stillness. Emily froze. No one should have this number. For a long moment, she just stared at it. The name field empty, the sound insistent. Then, with a steady hand, she reached toward the phone. Outside, the waves broke softly against the shore, and the call kept ringing.